Welcome to the NoteSpire Music Artist Insight Podcast, giving you a unique insight into the music and ministries of independent Christian artists. Here's your host, Paul Gibbs.
Thank you, Bob, and welcome everyone to the Artist Insight. Glad to have you along with us. We got a great show lined up for you today. My guest today is and now I know he's from Atlanta, Georgia, and his name is Jerry Buckner. Jerry, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Paul. I'm glad to be on here. It's a pleasure.
And how's the weather down there in Atlanta? I'm thinking it's probably a little warmer than we are here in Pennsylvania.
Well, it always is, I'm sure.
Yeah, right.
But looking out the window right now, it's just a gorgeous, beautiful day. It's in the 70s right now. It's going to get up in the 80s the afternoon. But it won't stay like this too long. It's going to get pretty hot here come, late May, July, June, and all that. It's going to get really unbearable.
Are you a native of that area, Jerry?
I am actually originally from Akron, Ohio.
Okay.
And I grew up there, born and grew up there. And although my parents really were from the South, all my relatives are in the South, but my dad and mother moved to Akron right after the war for my dad to get a job up there. And that's how I ended up in Ohio. But I grew up on cornbread and all the Southern stuff back when nobody knew about it up north. But
cornbread.
But yeah. Well, cornbread, beans and potatoes. My mom, she was from North Carolina, my dad from Tennessee, and
yep.
They kind of put that together. And in those days, we were kind of living in Akron in the north. It was kind of, we were Southerners, around a bunch of Yankees.
Yeah. I'm from upstate New York, but I've been in southern Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania Dutch country, and I refuse to take on some of the habits that they have here. But they have stuff like hog maw and pudding and stuff like that. Pudding is not the pudding that I'm used to. But what's the other one? Is there food there that like only you guys eat that nobody else would even have heard of?
Well, I think mentioning the Dutch, sauerkraut is a big meal up there, big deal up in Ohio, and especially Pennsylvania. I'm sure you know that. But I'll give you an example. I had a friend in Ohio who came down here. This was several years ago. He came down here and he said, I went to a restaurant. They had a salad bar. He said, I didn't recognize anything on the salad bar. I'll give you an idea. But yeah, there's stuff down here that you probably wouldn't get up north, on a salad bar. But the main thing that I saw when I first came here was the biscuits and gravy, which, that's universal now, but it wasn't back then. So the biscuits and gravy, the collard greens, the butter beans, and casserole. Let's see, the other thing, big thing, not zucchini. I can't think of one of the vegetables, but that's kind of where, a lot of vegetable things that you wouldn't know.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, let's get away from food. Let's talk about music. So first thing I want to know from you, Jerry, is for you, I'm guessing, and this not true for everybody, but I'm guessing that music for you started really early. Am I right?
Oh, you are right. And there's a long version and a short version. I'll give you the short version. But my dad sang gospel music, and now he had a business, a TV repair shop, but he sang gospel and actually professional for a while. But he was a simply wonderful man, a good Christian man. And my mom, they were both Christians. But he was in a gospel group and decided that he wanted to get a piano. And he got some old upright piano. They brought it in the house, and he got some mail order piano lessons. Okay, I'm about 8 years old. I'm home one night with my mom. She's in the kitchen doing stuff or whatever, and she's kind of humming a song. Sentimental Journey, if you miss an old song. And she was humming. And I'm listening. And so I walked over to the piano, sat down, and started picking it out of the piano. And pretty soon I'm playing it. And she comes in and she looks at me, how are you doing that? And I'm thinking, anybody can do it.
Right.
I said, I'm just doing it. And she said, that's unbelievable. So when my dad came home, she said, brought him in there. She said, sit down and do that, what you did for me. So I did, and there was discussion between them and amazement. And my dad said, okay, that's it. You're going to learn to play piano. And so he found a private teacher and they were working class people. They didn't have a whole lot of money to be, doing for other than just the things that we needed.
Yeah.
But he eked out the money for my lessons. And that's how I got started around 8 and started playing piano and eventually started getting into now Dad wanted me to play, gospel music, but, I got a little sideline and wanted to play pop music, play the hits. And that attracted the girls. And, when you're in junior high and high school,
I'm right with you there, my friend.
So eventually, by the time I got in high school, I had a band, and we were playing back in the '60s. Those days, there were not nightclubs, but places to play. Teen clubs is what I'm trying to get.
Yep.
They were all over the place, and you could go. They didn't pay a whole lot. I remember one time we went to one, and we got $3 for the whole band. But I started playing in the bands and playing, rock and roll and all that stuff. And eventually, when I got out of there, I'll stop short here in a minute, but my best friend and partner, then we kind of began to hook up after high school and started playing around. And then the story goes on from there. But that's kind of how I started playing at home in my dad's house.
Oh, cool. And you had the musical family kind of the influence there to kind of guide you along and kind of spur you along, even though maybe they didn't quite push you in the direction you wanted to go at that point. But yeah, it's so important to have that. And you and I have very similar stories, Jerry.
Oh, okay.
My parents weren't musical, but I found 2 or 3 buddies, and we, like you, about 10 years old, we got together and we were just kind of just playing these toy guitars, and then they were real guitars, and then learning the songs of the Monkees and the early Beatles and stuff like that. The junior high dances, and I could go on, but this isn't about me, it's about you. So, but
well, it sounds the same. Yeah, we're blood brothers. I think.
We certainly are. And I bet there's a lot of listeners out there, their heads are going up and down. Yep, been there, done that. What was your first guitar, Jerry?
Well, I was a keyboard player. I didn't play guitar. So
I'm sorry. Yep. Okay.
I can play. I shouldn't even use the word play. I mean, I can fool around with a guitar.
Mm-hmm.
I can certainly play bass, but I never liked guitar too much because I didn't like bending my fingers. It hurt kind of.
Yeah.
And the keyboard, for me, I could just do everything on it. So, and the keyboard is a great instrument for multi-purpose for writing.
Right.
It's got the bass and the chords. It's got everything. So, but I was a keyboard player, and that was my main instrument.
Okay,
and,
right. And you did say that earlier. You took piano lessons and things. So let me rephrase the question. I know you played a lot of pianos early on, keyboards and things. But what's the earliest, really? How shall I say it? Significant keyboard that you owned, and do you still own it?
Well, I'll give you 2 answers. My mom was a great believer in me. Well, my dad was too, but my mom was around me more, and she was able to buy a spinet piano.
Okay.
Back then, a brand new piano. I don't know how she afforded it, but I guess payments. And they brought it out. Well, that was a big difference in my life because it was a nice piano.
Yeah.
And it was 1959. I remember because I still have the piano. It's downstairs. I have written hit songs on that piano.
Sweet.
And in the piano, you can see where the guy that tuned it that day signed his name with the date. And I always thought that was so cool to have in there. I think it was like August, sometime in August of 1959.
Wow.
But yeah, that made a big difference. Now then, moving on to playing in the band and all that later on, I started out. I started out with a Wurlitzer piano, and this was back when they were like this they had wooden legs and they were heavy. Oh my goodness. To try to carry one, they had a handle on it, but good luck. It was but the problem with it was it used reeds, and the reeds could break, and I played real heavy, especially playing pop music.
Yeah.
I'm banging down on it. So the next keyboard I got that I used for the most of the time would have been, it was a Fender Rhodes stage piano, and I used it. It was durable. I didn't care for the sound of it as much as the Wurlitzer. I thought the Wurlitzer had, and still had the greatest sound. But and I've had other keyboards too. I mean, I've used the newer stuff, digital stuff. But
sure,
it isn't quite the same. The feel of it isn't the same.
Right.
I still love the piano.
Yeah, you mentioned that Wurlitzer. my first significant one was we talk about our similar stories. I've got a Model 200 here that I got back in 1973, and Jerry, and you said about the Rhodes. I always thought, well, the Wurlitzer was always like second rate. If you were serious and you had the money and you whatever, then you played a Fender Rhodes, not knowing that so many hits were used that Wurlitzer. So,
what a great sound those things.
Yeah.
But the Fender Rhodes, they were so durable. I remember we were going into a job at a hotel one night, and we had bringing the stuff in on dollies, and my Fender Rhodes fell off, and I mean, it just crashed on the cement. You know? And I thought, oh boy, took it in and played perfect.
Yeah.
But I've never been, and the Fender Rhodes has a good sound too. I like that sound. But I think, especially if you play, I don't play jazz much, but jazz and blues, that Wurlitzer, you just can't beat it. And the feel of that keyboard, I love the feel of it.
Yes. Mine is really, really, really sloppy now after 25 years of playing it, which I stopped playing all the time, and maybe in the mid-90s, but it's still sitting here in the studio.
Is that the model with the plastic top, like a green or black top on it?
Mine's got a black top. That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's got the screw-on legs, the chrome legs, and.
But do you have an out to go to an amp on it?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Because the early ones didn't have that.
They didn't have that.
They had a headphone, and it didn't work too well. But.
Yes, right. No, this one's got a headphone jack and the regular audio out. I've got the foot pedal, and I even have the music rack and the bench that went with it.
Oh, now that's a rarity.
Yeah, the matching bench. No, guys, don't call me up and make an offer. It's not for sale. But oh my goodness, yeah, the new stuff. The new stuff is cool, but you just can't beat vintage. Yeah,
no, you can't.
Yeah. So, Jerry, you've got some stuff here to talk about here as far as like Disney, things like that. You've had quite a journey here, and I don't know where to direct the conversation.
Well. My best friend and partner, who unfortunately passed away a few years ago, but Gary and I grew up together, and we went to junior high and high school together. And I came to Atlanta on my own, and Gary followed about a year later. He was working at Goodyear. I just had a friend here in Atlanta that said he's got a job at a hotel if you want to come down and play. And I thought I was going to come down here. This was 73.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was going to come down and play, like a month and go back to Akron. Well, I never went back. Mm-hmm. And eventually my wife came down and all that. But I just okay, I've lost track of where we're going here. I had a point to make.
Yeah,
what were we talking about?
We're talking about, and I do want to talk about Buckner and Garcia because I wasn't.
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry, I got sidetracked. Yeah. So here's what happened. So Gary comes down, and we're in Atlanta together, and we started jingle business, and we're trying, we're making money doing our jingle business. Well, we were working on a jingle one night at a studio, and we went out to have dinner into this restaurant in Marietta, Georgia, and we walk in there, and there's this machine sitting there, and people are playing it. We had no idea what it was. It was a Pac-Man machine, but we didn't know what's going on. So eventually,
Pac-Man.
Yeah,
I've heard. Cool.
There's a Pac-Man machine. So, watching all these people, well, we gave it a shot, stuck a quarter in there, and we get hooked. Well, we started coming in there every night instead of getting work done in the studio for jingles, playing this stupid machine, So then I got in my head, I thought, you know what? If we could write a song about this, and maybe get them to play it on the radio locally, it might help our jingle business. That was the original concept we had about it. So we worked on a song, and then we took it to a Bowie Geller organization. They had the Atlanta Rhythm section. They had other big acts. And we took it over to Arnie Geller, who would become a close friend and manager. And we played it for him. And he said, okay, well, why don't you record this thing? They didn't know what to do with it. So we did. They took it to New York and went to all the record companies. Nobody wanted it. They all rejected it. I still got the letters. It's funny to read them. So they decided to put it out themselves on a local label. They put it out, and they had connections with the radio people here. So they took it to the top station, and the guy played it, and it exploded. I mean, the phones was like, the guy went on the air and said, Arnie, The phones are blowing out here. I think you've got to get saying this on the air, over the air. They had to play it again the same hour, which radio back then did not do that.
No.
In fact, they still don't. You don't play the same song, and they got a tight list. Well, this thing looks like it's going to explode. So at that point, CBS, Columbia Records, caught wind of it, and fortunately, the vice president's son heard the record. He had taken it home with a bunch of others, and the kid went crazy. So all of a sudden, now they want to make a deal. So they did, and the single come out, and they said, let's do an album. And there's a whole story with what happened. I won't get into all that now, but the record became eventually a monster hit record worldwide. And to this day, it's still very relevant.
Yeah.
Stuff going on. It's TV shows licensed it. I mean, it's just amazing. Just amazing.
Wow. And and you just kind of put this thing together, and maybe that you would get a few more jingles out of it.
That's what we originally thought. Now, I will say this: when we recorded it, we thought we were also songwriters. We were writing pop songs at the time, but we thought, we're not going to just throw in the name somewhere and just do. We wanted to actually create a song that we thought on its own would be a pretty good pop song, but be about this particular subject, so that we get some longevity and not just have something that people listen to for a couple of days and that was the end of it. So we went at it with that idea in mind. But the opening phrase of the song really covered the entire 80s video games. It was Gary wrote the line. He did a lot of the lyrics. And the opening line, I got a pocket full of quarters, I'm headed to the arcade. That really what represented that era. I'm sure you would agree.
Yes.
That said it all. That was it. I mean, these kids, they were, everybody was playing.
We sure were.
I can tell you a funny story if you want to hear this about that.
Please.
We're in New York. We're traveling all over doing, TV shows and stuff. And so we're in New York, and Nickelodeon had, at that time, they had a show. It was kind of a talk show for teens, where the guy would walk around like Phil Donahue, and they would do these interviews and stuff. So we were supposed to be on this show with a bunch of other people. So they cram us in this green room at the Ed Sullivan Theater. So we're crammed in this room, and they've got a couple people, actors from a couple of TV shows. I forget who they were. And they had some representatives from Nintendo and some of the game companies, a couple of those guys. And of course, we're in there. And then there was a group of ladies who had started an anti-video game deal, campaign. And it caught the attention of some of the media. So they were feeling their oats. They were getting a lot of media, putting down the games and how they're terrible for kids and blah, blah, blah. So we're all in this room together. Well, eventually there was two or three of those women. The main woman, she gets into a pretty good discussion kind of argument with one of the video game guys, executives that's going to be on the show. They get into it back and forth. Well, it got a little funny. Well, I'm sitting next to the woman, and Gary's next to me, and I'm thinking, boy, I hope she doesn't find out who we are. I mean, this is not going to be, she's going to jump on us.
Yeah, right.
Well, so everything quiets down a little bit, and she kind of turns and looks at me, and she leaned over. She goes, "Are you the guys that do that record, Pac-Man Fever?" Uh-huh. And so I said, "Well, yeah, that's us." She goes, "Okay, hold on." She pulls out in her purse or her bag, whatever. She pulls out a record and turns to me, and she says, "My daughter loves this song. Will you autograph it for me?"
Oh, cool. And
we said, "Well, yeah." And then she promptly walked out on national television to put down the industry. And I thought, this is life. This is the way it is. I always thought that was an interesting story.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you just never know. Wow. So Wreck-It Ralph, let's talk about that.
Wreck-It Ralph came to us via, of course, Disney. I got a call one day. This was, I think, around 2015, I believe. I hope I'm right. And I get a call from the music director at Disney, and calls up and said, "Hi, McDougal, Mr. McDougal from Head Over the Music." And he says, "Look, we got this movie," and he starts explaining the movie. I never heard of it. Starts explaining what it is. And he goes, "We've got a spot that we'd like to, we got a song we were working on up here, but we'd like you guys to do it." and put it in the movie.
Wow.
Would you be interested? And I'm going, no, of course. Why would I be interested in doing a movie for, a song for Disney? I said, of course, So long story short, they said, we're going to send our guy out to Atlanta. You guys can cut it, can record it there. And he's worked on a lot of the lyrics if you want to work with him and all that. And so they did. And I thought it was going to be probably not real pleasant because this guy's going to come from California and probably want to run the show. Turned out to be a great guy, really great guy. We become good friends. And anyway, we cut the song. Disney loved it. And it was meant to open. It's the actual theme for the movie, but they couldn't use it in the opening because they had contractual agreements previous to that. See, this was just couple months before the movie come out. It's amazing they could even put it in. Yeah. So they put it in 2 spots in the film and at the end. And then of course on the soundtrack, it's the first song in the soundtrack because it's but I mean, it was just a tremendous thing to be a part of, to sit in a theater, which we did, and see your name in the credits for a Disney movie. I mean, that was pretty cool.
Wow. Cool. Wow. God has certainly opened some doors for you, my friend.
He has. Now, we did a song back in, we had kind of 2 eras. We had the era where we did, our first song ever charted was a novelty song that we wrote about back when Howard Cosell was on Monday Night Football. We called it Merry Christmas from the NFL. And it was about Howard Cosell. He's being Santa Claus, bringing all this stuff. It was a funny little song. And a major label put it out. It did okay. Or whatever, but that was our first chart song. But then I was riding in the car one night, and at the time, you remember the poem "Footprints in the Sand"? Oh yes, that had become very big and well known at that time. This is back 1980, 81, so a long time ago. Well, it just came over me that we should do a song. I mean, it was almost like a presence was there. I don't know how to explain it, but I told Gary, and so we wrote this song. We took the poem and rearranged it some and wrote music and a chorus and everything with it. We put it out ourselves. We took it around radio, and they started playing it, which was unusual. And then it went to a record company, bought it out in Detroit, and put it out. And it did very, very well. And we were real happy to be a part of that. I mean, it's still today gets some radio play. It was number 1 in many different markets in country and AC. Never pop. But so we did. That was our first experience doing something like that. That would be spiritual.
Right. So your background then, I mean, did you grow up with a spiritual background and have, faith and things, or did that come along later on? Well,
what happened, of course, I mentioned my dad was a gospel singer, but he also was a deacon in the church. But my parents and I, we went to Baptist churches. And when I was a kid, probably, I don't know, 7, 8, right in that area when I started playing piano, in a classroom, maybe even younger, I don't know. But there was, the teachers, I accepted Christ there. Yep. Honestly, didn't, and when looking back, didn't really totally understand everything as I should. But I did. But I was sincere about it. I mean, and being going to church every week, I continued to understand better and better. And I as a Christian. But as I got older, I got out in the rock music. I got into all that stuff, and I just, even though in my heart and mind I always professed Christianity, but I didn't practice. I mean, I was like way out there, and this went on for some time, and even into through all I mean, I think back all the time. I think back about the when Pac-Man was a hit and the album was a hit, and we made a lot of money. And I never even thanked God for that. I didn't even think. I mean, you think about how, that's just awful. But I didn't think about that then. I just thought I'm okay. And I do believe because of my dad, I thought, and somehow in the back of my mind, that I'd be okay because my dad's a good guy and he's a Christian, which of course is not, that doesn't cover you at all. But no, but we can think that. That's what I was thinking. Yeah. So I'm getting to what happened. So this went on for years and years. Unfortunately, I lost my daughter to drugs back in 1999, which was traumatic. But it still didn't. I of course, I didn't understand. I mean, it's just awful. Well, to make matters worse, 2 years ago, I lost my son to drugs.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Jerry.
Well, he had been involved with, his sister, both of them. Now, he was careful about what he did. I mean, it was open. We all knew about it. He'd been through clinics with all this stuff, and he was careful. He did heroin, but he was careful. Well, he got off of it for a while, and then he went to some guy's house to deliver something, and he knew this guy. He was a drug dealer. He said, "Hey, you want a little hit?" And he'd had an argument with his girlfriend, so he did. Well, it was fentanyl, and it killed him on the spot.
Oh,
this was 2 years ago.
Oh.
Well, the day that happened, it came over me, the presence of Jesus and angels. Now, I don't what you can take this, believe it or not, it doesn't matter. I don't tell this story hardly to anybody. But that day, I sat at my desk and I felt like a portal over top of me open. I mean, I couldn't physically see it, but I could see this spiritually. And I could see angels around the house. They were they were sitting on the roof. They were all over the place. And it came over me that I needed Jesus Christ. I needed him. And I knew right then, I knew what had been going on and wrong in my life with a lot of stuff. And I realized then, and I was, it was a beautiful moment, and my heart was just lit up with Jesus and the Holy Spirit. And I realized then that that's what I had been lacking. I had not accepted and understood that I need Jesus. I can't run everything. I can't do all these things myself. I thought I was doing all this myself. Well, I wasn't. So it was a sad, tragic day, but it was a day that turned my life around.
Amen.
And ever since then, I continued, doing what I do musically. I still write songs, but I decided I wanted to write some Christian music, and I began writing, and these songs began coming to me that they weren't mine. I mean,
okay, right?
They weren't mine. The one that Love Won That Day, that came to me, and I knew then when I did that song, I said, "Thank you, Lord. That's not me. I couldn't write anything that nice. I mean, I can write pop songs and stuff, but this was, I thought, a beautiful song that again didn't belong to me, and I have a few other ones, and I'm still working on. So that's kind of how that happened for me in my spiritual life.
Wow, what a testimony! That's and it's so kind of a big turning point for you, and sometimes it has to, things like that. I won't say have to happen, but when those things happen, tragically, God often uses those things to turn us around. That's for sure. So your music kind of changed at that point. Or just kind of different. Love Won That Day. That's a great song. I know we've got it here on the radio station. And how did that song come about? Where did exactly that come from?
I think one day I was thinking about the resurrection and thinking about all that happened and what Jesus went through, and just thinking about how horrible that was to be physically beaten and spit on and all these terrible things and be hung on a cross and still he could turn to the guy on the left, the thief, and say, and all he said, "Remember me out, you'll be with me in paradise." And I thought, that love, I mean, you can't understand it. It's a love. I mean, that he could do that, and the idea to me, I'm thinking, even though that happened, of course, as we all believe, he was resurrected. So love won that day. It won.
Yep.
He defeated Satan. It's hard for people to see that they don't understand. I've got friends who don't believe. I say friends, people I know, and they'll go, "How could he send his son to be killed? What kind of God is that?" and all that. And I go, you don't understand, but I could explain this to you, but you're not open to it. So, I've tried to do it, but sometimes it's just, and then they would go online and put up these, blasphemous things. So
right.
I thought, well, maybe I should not be even trying to talk to these people. I don't know,
That makes you wonder sometimes, doesn't it, Jerry? When you just they just kind of just put up their brick wall, and they're like, why do I even bother talking to you? Well, maybe it's just not time. I'm not sure how that. Yeah, but then we're always supposed to be open to trying to talk to someone about the Lord. But thank you for sharing that.
Well, I did have an atheist one time. Something that this one friend of mine put up that this guy had said, and it just really got to me. So I sent this guy an email, and we had started having a conversation, and he was actually very nice. And I said to him in one of our conversations, I said, here's what I don't understand, my friend. I said, you want to be an atheist? That's fine. You don't want to believe? That's fine. I said, but why do you find it necessary to mock what I believe or what we believe?
Good
it's okay
question.
if you don't want to believe, okay. But why do you want to make fun of it? Why do you want to mock me? And he said, I don't know. I don't know why we do that. I said, well, I'm thinking I do know why in my mind. But he said, would you consider coming on our side? I said, no, I wouldn't consider it at all. Not at all. I said, I hope that you will consider giving out, an opportunity to Jesus Christ. But I don't think he did. I mean, he just, he wasn't gonna.
Yeah.
But I never understood that. Why you have to make fun of us? Why do you have to mock us and mock? But we know why. But
true, because it doesn't go. It typically doesn't go the other way. As Christians, if their heart is in the right place, the last thing we're going to do is mock an atheist.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do that. I don't believe what they believe, and I don't like them, and But I'm not going to. I don't think that gets anything good done if you do stuff like that.
Certainly not.
And but these people, and you see so much of it now.
Yeah, for sure.
So much. It's we can see where things are going. I mean, we can see where it's going.
That is true. Jerry, I want to talk about this song, "The Locket." I'm on your your Facebook page. New song about the love between a father and a daughter who will be getting married and moving away. Now, my first was a daughter, and she's married now, and still close to her. She didn't move away, but I can kind of identify with this song, and many of our listeners can too, I'm sure. You want to tell us the backstory behind this one?
Well, there was. I still do work on original music, and some of it's for TV or might be a movie or something. And I had a movie situation where I was asked if I wanted to submit a song, and they told me they basically wanted it about, a daughter and a son. I mean, a daughter and a father and her leaving or whatever. But do what you want. So I did. I decided to make it about a girl getting married and leaving, But, whenever you write songs, I don't know if you write songs. I'm sure you probably do. But sometimes it's very rare that it might be a completely about one thing. But many times it can be a composite of things that come out, in your lyrics and your idea. Right. And I think that's the case with The Locket. I spent days trying to come up with exactly the direction I wanted. I couldn't get anything that I thought worked. And then when I thought about the Locket part, I thought, well, this would I think would make sense. I would like to have done that. I guess I would. The story on there made up. I wish it had been my daughter that I lost. I guess, but then
sure.
I've got a granddaughter that's with us that has a boyfriend and will be getting married. So I think it's kind of a composite of things in there on the song. But once I came up with the idea, or the idea was given to me. Then it all kind of began to come together, and I think that I've had a lot of reaction to it. People really like the song, and I'm glad they do. I think it's a positive song, and a song that a lot of, like you say yourself, if your daughter didn't move away, but hey, if she's not living with you anymore, that's you miss her.
Yep, exactly. Yep. A lot of people can relate to this in one way or another. Maybe it's the daughter, maybe it's the father, maybe whatever. But yeah, when you write a song like that, you just touch so many hearts in so many different ways. Amen.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
So, Jerry, you have got quite a story, obviously, which you've shared with us. God has opened a lot of doors for you. You've had some what the world might call success, a lot of that, and over the years. And I'm just amazed at how similar our stories are, you and I. But you've had the success, that I have not. I chose the day job work and just made music a part-time thing. But anyway, so some of our listeners, I know, Jerry, are thinking, "Wow, look at the opportunities that he had. Look at this. He had, this song and this song and this song and the whole Disney thing and et cetera, and it goes on and on." And some of our listeners, Jerry, are saying, "I wish that could happen for me, or that hasn't happened for me, but it didn't happen for me and now it's too late, et cetera, et cetera." There's so many obstacles, so many things, so many dark places that our minds go. The enemy sends us, whatever. Is there any thoughts you could share looking back on ways that you might have, overcome some of the obstacles? Because, for all the success, et cetera, that you've had, I'm sure there's some obstacles along the way, too. Many thoughts come to mind there?
Oh, many, many thoughts.
Okay.
In general, I used to, it really wasn't is, but especially then because of the difference, and I can explain that, but it's a war, and you're in a battle, it's a war. And what I would say to anyone is, first off, don't ever think you can't do something. I don't care what age you are, because who knows? So if you got something, you go with it, but pray about it and think about it. We didn't do that then, but I would tell you that now. But back then, the one thing that we did, and I think there's always exceptions, but we were consistent, always going. Doing songs, taking them to people, getting rejected, getting thrown out of places, going to New York, being told this is awful. We were at a radio station one time with a record we took in there, and Gary had a short fuse, and he got into an argument with the music director after he critiqued our record, and the guy got so mad he broke the record, threw it at us, told us to get out of the radio station.
Wow. Okay.
And so we've seen all kinds of things, but we never gave up, and that's the important part. Most people, and I really shouldn't say give up. I mean, at some point you got to say, "Hey, I can't keep doing this," because there's a price to pay, Paul. There's a price to pay, and I think I contributed to that by spending so much time that maybe that had something to do with my children getting into drugs. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to even get into all that, but there's a price to pay with your marriage, because you're out there and you're playing in bands and you're out there at night. You're going to get into trouble. You're going to do stuff you shouldn't do. And there is a price to pay for that. So, would I wish that on somebody? I don't think I would. But if you feel that desire that strong to want to do what you do, and we enjoyed the music part, we enjoyed writing and music, but the business part was just, it was just awful, just tough, because, you got to be able to take. We got rejected so much all the time. Wow. But we would just say, okay, we get up off the floor. Okay, well, we believe in ourselves, and so we keep going. And so that's what I would say. Whatever it is, whether you're a painter or a plumber or a musician, whatever you are, even if you're older, it's tougher. It's tougher when you're older. But if you're younger and have the energy like we did, hey, go for it until you think that maybe this isn't for you to do. I never thought that it wasn't for me. I always thought that I was supposed to do what I was doing. Okay. Now, maybe that was just me, probably, but that's why I think we kept going, both of us, because Gary had a good job, and I could have, we had a pretty good business going at that time with our commercials. So, but anyway, keep at it, because you'll get better. The songs I wrote, I listen to them now from back then. They're horrible. They're just horrible. I remember I got a session with a guy named Chips Moman. Chips Moman recorded Elvis. He was a big had studio in Memphis, and he had done Elvis, some hits with Elvis, and he'd written he wrote Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head for the movie. I mean, this guy was big time. And I got to sit down with him where I had my songs, and he came in and sat down in a chair to listen to my songs. Well, the songs, there's parts of them they're good. The choruses, I think, but they just weren't very good overall. I mean, they just weren't. And I remember I would play them, and I'd get about a third of the way through, and I'd stop and, well, let me play you this one. And this went on for a few minutes, and finally he said, "Hey, stop a minute." He said, "Don't stop playing your songs. Let me hear them. Don't just stop and keep going to the next one." He said, you don't want to do that. He said, "Now what I've listened to, I don't think you're saying what you want to say yet." So he said, "You need to keep working at it." Well, you don't want to hear that. You want him to say it's a great song. But it's taken me years to learn about writing a song. I mean, there's a way to do it.
Yeah.
And then there's a way, then you got to have that extra something that, I did a song called The Wall that Bertie Higgins, I don't know if you remember, Bertie Higgins had a big hit with,
that name is familiar when you say that.
Key Largo was a huge
Key
hit.
Largo, right. Okay.
Bertie and I were good friends. He had a couple hits, he had some big records, and she's still outperforming. Well, I wrote this song called The Wall about the Vietnam Wall. It just came to me. And I remember I was writing it, and these people's names and all this stuff was coming to me. It was a bizarre. And so I wrote it out, and Arnie, my manager, so we got Bertie one to record it, which he did, and it was come out on CBS, and it did pretty good. He was on a bunch of TV shows and all that. But here's the funny part: they call from CBS because they always do their legal department on songs, especially with names and everything, to make sure there's no problems. And they came back and said, what this song talking about? This guy's name. There's such a guy, and he was the guy. It was 16. I mean, there was so much of it that came through, and it just was in the air. And I thought, this stuff, I think it just circulates in the air. And some people, if you work on it, if you write songs all the time, maybe your brain starts to pick up things.
Yeah.
And you can get these ideas and titles and songs. And so I don't know, that just, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Still do.
So basically, I love what you're saying. The phrase consistency is, or they say content is king, but consistency is queen. Got to be consistent, right?
Got to be consistent. You got to believe in what you're doing. You got to keep at it. These people need to say to themselves, "Hey, these people aren't going to quit." You keep going to the same people.
Yep.
And and they go, "Hey, they're around." That means something to them because they go, "Well, maybe I better listen, pay more attention to these people." But we would keep going. One time we come out of a building, some office that we got thrown. When I say thrown out, they didn't like what we had, and we came out, and Gary just went and did a somersault like he was thrown out the door. This was in Cleveland, Ohio, right out in the downtown, rolling around in the sidewalk like he'd been thrown out. It was funny.
Keep the attitude. Keep the attitude positive, right? Yeah.
But it is the music business, and even now, it's better in some ways for independents. Certainly better because radio back in the day, we had hits. You had to have radio, and if you didn't have radio, forget it. Well, now you got the internet, but you still got to have money to promote it to get it to people.
Yeah,
so
right.
But at least you can put stuff out there, and you maybe get lucky and it gets viral, and there you go.
And you still have to be consistent, though. I think that's even more important now, don't you?
Oh yeah, you got to be consistent. You got to keep going. You can't let them beat you down. You got to keep. They will if you let them, but you just gotta love it and want to do it. It's almost like you have to do it. I was just going
to say that, Jerry. There's a difference between, and I've met musicians, I'm sure you have too, whether they can just take it or leave it. But then there's others like you and I, we can't not do it. We have to do it.
And then there's the people who, I remember back playing in bands, when I was still playing in bands around, there's the people who go, "Oh, Atlanta Rhythm Section, they aren't that good, and everything." Well, yeah, they were, and they had great songs. And even if they weren't, they had some success. Yeah. Anytime you can have success with anything, that anybody likes your song or anything, man, that's a wonder. That you're way ahead of the game. I mean, that's so hard to get. I remember meeting the guy that was on the Dukes of Hazzard that played Cooter. I can't think of his real name.
Oh, okay. Yep.
But anyway, he came over to the house one day. We kind of became friends, and we were talking. He was saying the same thing. He said, if any kind of success, if you can get it, it's so hard to get. It's just hard to get people to like, and even with like a successful record, like our record or any of them that were successful, a lot of things have to fall into place. I mean, a lot of things that you have no control over, absolutely no control over.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's all a part of it too. I mean, it's just, I guess you can call it luck, whatever you want to call it. It's a combination of things, but you got to have something to offer. You can't just just be all luck. It's got to be, something there that people like.
Yep, absolutely. And if you're not consistent, if you don't keep at it, then your failure is pretty much guaranteed, guys. So, whatever level you are at, keep going, be consistent, keep looking to the Lord for guidance, ask him to open the correct doors for you that he wants to be opened, and shut the ones that he doesn't want to be opened, and keep right on going, because you don't fail until you don't fail until you really until you quit. Amen.
Yeah, and I want to agree with you in praying. That's important. We didn't do that. I mean, we used to pray some. Gary and I did. Gary and I both. Mm-hmm. But we didn't pray like we should every day. And so I want to add that to the mix. In addition to what I said, you need to pray about it, because you may be told this is not your thing. I got something else for you.
Yes. Yeah, very good, Jerry. Thank you for sharing that, because what good is the success or whatever it is if it's not God's will and he's not in it. Yeah. Well, Jerry, thank you so much. I want to remind our listeners that, of course, you are listening to the Artist Insight program, and this comes out, it's a broadcast on our radio station, which you may be listening to right now, WNSM-DB NoteSpire Radio, broadcasting on the internet 24/7 at NoteSpireRadio.com, and you can find if you're on your phone by going to the Live 365 app and searching for NoteSpire. All right. And then you can also, I was going to say, it's broadcast Wednesday, Fridays, and Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the station. And if you're hearing it there and you want to hear it again or whatever, you can hear it anytime you want on your favorite podcast site. So go to iTunes or iHeartRadio, Podchaser, wherever, and type in the word NoteSpire, NoteSpire, and you will find all of the podcasts that we do, including this one. And finally, if you have any questions, comments, keep the criticisms to yourself. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sure we want to hear it all. info@notespiremusic.com. And we want to thank Jerry Buckner for being with us. Jerry, it's been great. Any final thoughts for our listeners? Anything you want to share?
I do want to share.
Yeah, let them know where to get you, where to find you.
Well, I'm all over the internet. You can go to Facebook and look me up, Jerry Buckner. JerryBuckner.com is one of my sites, but you can look me up on Facebook. You can find songs on YouTube. And here's what I want to say. Yeah. I want to thank you, Paul. You were the first person to play Love One that day, and I thank you so very, very much to get us going. And I thank your listeners. If I don't know if anyone called in, but I thank them for listening. And I thank you. And I guess you mentioned you might be playing another one of our songs or played it or something. So I want to thank you for that. And we definitely will have some more releases that we'll be sending to you. But thank you for being the first one to give us a chance and play our song, Paul. Thank you.
It's an honor, Jerry, to God has placed us in this unique position to be able to share songs like that, and we are very honored and grateful to be able to do that. So, guys, do listen to when you find Jerry online, it's Love One That Day. What a very meaningful, very touching song as well. So, Jerry, whatever you send to us, we're going to broadcast them. Don't worry.
Well, thank you so much, Paul. God bless.
You're very welcome. All right, you take care, my friend. We'll talk to you again.
Take care. God bless.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to NoteSpire Radio Artist Insight. We hope you've enjoyed the program today, and join us next time when we again bring you a unique look into the lives, music, and ministries of Christian artists here on NoteSpire Radio Artist